What's up, War Rapport family? We are back with another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Rapport. Joining me live from the Walthouse Football Performance Center is a very special guest, Miss Talyor Davis, sideline reporter for ESPN, jack of all trades, and former Auburn graduate.
Very proud Auburn graduate. I bring it up anytime I can. So thanks for having me.
Talyor, let's start with a little nostalgia.
Oh, please.
You graduated from Auburn in 2014.
Yes.
And you got to witness one of the greatest stretches of Auburn football ever from 2010 to 2014. What was it like being a student on campus during that time?
Oh my gosh. I joke all the time that I really bookended my career very well. My freshman year was Cam Newton national championship, historic season. My senior year was Kick Six, Prayer, and Jordan Hare SEC championship. Goodness. So freshman and senior year, two of the best in Auburn history. Sophomore and junior year, we don't have to talk about as much, but I really was so fortunate to have two of Auburn's best seasons when I was here as a student. And I really was so spoiled in my experiences at some of those games because they, like I said, go down in history. It really gave me a good sense of Auburn feeling like home. I can remember looking around the student section and being like, we all live here. Like, we're not just fans. This is part of our life's story. And I really attached to Auburn so much, specifically because of my experience during those football seasons.
My college experience wasn't as great as yours, but we did get an undefeated
it was up there.
Season, where we claimed a national title. They didn't win one, but they
they got gypped.
Well, let's fast forward to the present.
Sure.
Hugh Freeze is the coach now here at Auburn University. Year one left a lot to be desired.
Sure.
Year two started with a lot of hope due to excitement on the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
These first two games, game one, Alabama A&M, lots of points scored. Game two, very bad loss to Cal, I would call it.
Yep.
Now, I listened to a podcast you did recently, and I could hear the pain of 1,000 Auburn fans in your voice over how things went. And you said something that struck me. You said it feels like 2023.
Yeah.
Delve into that a little bit for me. Like, what did you see?
Right. Specifically offensively, it just felt like the same song and dance that we were dealing with last year. And unfortunately, I think when you look at the quarterback situation, which obviously has been a hot topic in the past 8 hours. There were a lot of reasons as to why. And last season, I covered 3 Auburn games last season for ESPN. At one point, we were talking about the 2 quarterback system when they were rotating in Robbie Ashford on the same drive and that Peyton couldn't get solidified in his role because of that. Okay, we eliminated that. Then it was Hugh Freeze is no longer in the play calling role, which is his bread and butter. Okay, we fixed that. Then it was he has no receivers who can create separation in his routes. We went out and got some of the best targets that Auburn's ever had. All of these reasons, excuses, whatever word you want to use, have been eliminated. And we're still looking at the same problems from the quarterback position. And the thing with the quarterback, and I'm so fortunate to work with Jason Campbell every week, and he gives me such good perspective on the quarterback role in particular. You either are getting far too much praise or far too much criticism. But the reality of that role is you touch the ball every snap. You are in the driver's seat. So the ultimate destination has to do with you. And so the quarterback position always will get the focus because it has to. And unfortunately, the more we've alleviated any of those options, the common denominator has remained the same, and the performance at the quarterback position has not been up to standards. And it's why games that are very much within reach have not ended up going Auburn's way. So I think that while looking at the storyline of last season, the familiarity of, man, the defense did everything you could ask for, even though they weren't perfect. Obviously, Jarquez had a turnover. You got to keep that in mind. And that's so not him. Kyan Lee could have had an interception that completely changed. It was a game-changing play. So all of those are in. The offensive line would tell you themselves they had troubles in pass protection. But what comes down to it is we had every reason to walk away with a dub in that game. Difficulties at the quarterback position and a lack of offensive continuity or rhythm got us in the loss column. That's the same story we were talking about all last season.
Cal's not a better team than Auburn.
No.
I think we can both agree.
They played better that day.
They did. And Auburn played down to the competition, which seems to be a theme throughout the last 24 years of Auburn football, is playing down to the competition. Hugh Freeze is trying to get people to play up to them now. That's where the Georgias, even I would say shockingly, the Ole Misses are at right now. People are trying to catch up to them in terms of consistency. But I want to stick with quarterback because news broke today that Hank Brown is going to start at quarterback. Now, you just came out of coaches meetings. You know, what did you hear from Hugh Freeze on the decision to start Hank Brown?
It's never going to be an easy situation. And Hugh has been very public about his loyalty and his backing and his belief in Payton Thorne. That hasn't wavered. I think that he wants to make sure that Payton still knows the staff believes in him, the team believes in him. And they have reiterated so many times, and he even just did in meetings, Payton's the best player at practice. Payton runs that offense the way that Hugh Freeze has drawn it out to be. It's not translating to game atmosphere unless we have a ridiculously comfortable lead, i.e. a 70-point lead in the Alabama A&M game. He goes out and does exactly what they're accustomed to seeing from him. Those tough games, those back against the wall, game on the line, can you manage this thing and make correct decisions? He's yet to show enough. And at this point, you're dealing with a guy who's been in college football for a long time. So how much further could it really go? And conversely, you've got this group of young receivers. You've got some youth in the secondary. You're looking to build the future of this program. And you've got a redshirt freshman in Hank Brown that has shown glimpses of what he can be. So the coaching staff is looking at this in all fairness, not that you look past New Mexico by any means. This is kind of your last opportunity to figure it out.
To get Hank Brown in there,
because we start SEC competition. And I also said this on my podcast. Payton very well could go in there this week and play a lights out game. That doesn't tell us anything because we're accustomed to seeing him do that against competition comparable to New Mexico.
I would argue last year he didn't look that good as he did against A&M. Versus anybody last year. But like you said, it's got to translate against Power 5 opponents.
And the back against the wall moments. And so giving him another opportunity this week, it's not really about timing anymore. It's not really about chemistry or really getting a full grasp of the playbook. So now you kind of are out of time to give Hank real live game reps. Let him have his first start in an actual opportunity before SEC competition comes to town.
Practice is such a funny thing. I'm a golfer, and I can tell you there are some rounds on the practice tee I feel like I'm going to win the Masters, and then when I get to the first tee, I'm like, don't look at me or I'm going to shake it, right? So it definitely has to translate from practice to the real thing.
Exactly.
Did Hugh Freeze give you a sense today that he felt like there wasn't a big gap? Because it's one thing to say this guy performs the best in practice, but last year in college football, we saw better quarterbacks get benched. Jalen Milroe finished the season as a fringe Heisman candidate. And he got benched at some point during that season. What's the gap between, Payton Thorne and Hank Brown right now?
Hugh actually mentioned the Milroe example, Jalen Hurts, and he said he told Payton that this week. Think of the guys that have been in this situation. They got benched, and it was their redemption story. He said, I'm not saying that it's over for Payton, but for this week, what's best for our team is to give Hank Brown a start. When he points out the differences in the two, obviously he says that Payton separates himself in practice. You've got the experience component with Payton Thorne as well, playing high-level ball for as many years as he has. He also points out the mobility difference. And one thing about a Hugh Freeze offense, having that guy who's capable with his legs, especially when you see pressure fronts that you see in the SEC, is imperative. Hank Brown isn't that guy. He's comfortable outside the pocket, but he's not going to scramble and create as much as Payton can.
He's got to get the ball out of his hand.
However, in that same breath, he says his arm strength, his comfortability in those throws, better than Payton. So I think you've got a different component in Payton that Hank doesn't possess, but Hank's got a component that Payton doesn't possess. But it came down to decision making. And it was interesting in the coaches meeting, something that has never happened for me. And I've been doing this job 6 years now. Coach actually showed us the quarterback cut up from the Cal game, walked us through each of the plays and paused it where a decision should have been made, showed us what Payton should have seen. And he said during those coaches or those player meetings that he had with Payton and Hank, he went through these plays. He stopped and asked them questions and was looking for insight because he said, first, I needed to make sure that this wasn't on me. I needed to make sure that my quarterback felt equipped enough to see what he's seeing and make the appropriate decision.
Did he understand what he was supposed to do?
Correct. Because if not, that's on the coaches. And Hugh said, first things first, I have to look at me. I have to look at my staff. So I sat them down, asked them these. It's great leadership. This really, really impressed me. And he said, Payton said everything that I've coached. He has taught. He saw exactly what he needed to. He presented it. So did Hank. Want to point that out. The difference is he's not doing it when time comes. He's handing off the run when they've stacked the box and you've got open guys on the perimeter. He's throwing to the deep slant instead of the intermediate. Those decisions, which he can sit down and watch, and clearly he can operate in practice, but when game time comes, he's not operating that way. So it felt like there is no other option for this coaching staff than to let Hank have this go. That's so interesting because Peyton Thorne told everyone recently that last year he wasn't given the latitude to make those decisions at the line of scrimmage. And you fired your offensive coordinator. You revamped the wide receiver room that everyone blamed for almost every problem Auburn had last year. Absolutely. And then 2 games in, you're having a lot of the same problems. So it makes me think, were the wide receivers as much of the problem as we thought? Well, we'll see. We'll find out on Saturday. Hank Brown got a shot in the bowl game, Taylor. And for a quarter and a half, he looked like Peyton Manning out there. 7 for 9, over 100 yards passing. And the receivers that everyone said couldn't catch a cold, suddenly were catching those passes from Hank Brown. Right. Did Hugh Freeze give you a sense that the team is behind this decision? Do they believe in Hank Brown? Yes. He said what they have played witness to without Hank being in the role of the guy is that he does galvanize guys and that guys are drawn to him. He's got a confidence about him. But the proof is going to be in the pudding because the reality of your confidence level as a backup and your confidence level as a starter, and even further, a starter who's getting criticism like Peyton Thorne's been dealing with, that challenges a guy's character way more than the moxie you can have at practice knowing you're the backup that everyone hopes to see, but you haven't had to prove it yet. So as of right now, he actually said that a couple defensive guys have stepped up and said, I'm excited for Hank to get this opportunity. I think they can say that and it not be a shot at Peyton. Thorne, I think it's a showcase of like, Coach, we're behind whatever you think is the best decision because ultimately we all want to win. Coach wants to reiterate what they want to do here and what they're building takes time. He has said that a lot, but he gave us a great example. If you look at SEC champions of past, they've had 3 straight recruiting classes in the top 10. As much as we all want to look at the transfer portal, I have had a front seat view to the negative side of the transfer portal and the fact that this isn't always a foolproof system. And as much as we think you can plug and play in today's age of college football and specifically the quarterback position, it's not always going to translate. DJ, ooh. Right. You know, but I think what they're doing is investing in development, investing in high school recruiting, pulling impact transfer portal guys in ways that I think they can make an impact without becoming the team's identity. And so when you look at a new quarterback coming in week 3, redshirt freshman, to see players around him going to the head coach and saying, I'm behind him, I'm ready to do this. It's because they see the long-term picture and Hank could have a prominent role in that. But they also want to win right now. Both can be true at the same time. Yeah, I think that if you were a player that gave Hugh Freeze your last year of eligibility last year, you maybe are second guessing that decision the way the season turned out. I point this out to our listeners all the time. It's, I understand it takes time to build a program, but also, guys need to win now. Guys are trying to get to the NFL now. So it needs to look as good as it possibly can, as soon as it possibly can, so that you are doing the best for those players. Taylor, before we get out of here, and I know you're reporting on the game tomorrow. Yes. So I'm not going to ask you for any predictions. Thank you. But what are you expecting to see from Auburn offensively? Now, you sat in those coaches' meetings. And look, if Auburn doesn't cover, Peyton Thorne doesn't have to worry about getting those Venmo requests. They'll be going to Hank Brown. Come on, people. He actually told us that months ago, Peyton did, when we sat down for our sit down over at Vintage 2298 Restaurant Butcher Shop. Love that restaurant, by the way. Great. It's fantastic. Chef Baldwin, Taylor just gave you a great shout out. Love it. But, what are you expecting to see? Does this offense look drastically different with Hank Brown? Or the package is going to be different? Or is it a matter of just running the same stuff and expecting Hank to execute that stuff better? Right. I don't expect it to be substantially different. I do think it will be condensed a little bit. Hugh Freeze told us that he wants to get him some completions early just to build that comfortability. Obviously, I think the run game could also be a big factor of it because of the weather that we're dealing with. I'm not sure how much they're going to be able to air it out if it's raining the entirety of the game. So unfortunately, I do think that that's going to impact it a little bit. But like he said, the arm strength, the accuracy, and what this guy has shown his ability to do in the pocket, I think they're going to let him go. I don't think that he could possibly have the same expansive opportunity that Peyton has because Peyton's had way more time being QB1.
Yeah.
But I do expect that they are going to try and get him into a rhythm with the passing game early to build that confidence. And I did ask Coach Freeze, is there a plan to work Peyton in, or is the hope that this is Hank's? And he said, for Saturday, my hope is that Hank goes out, lights it up, and solidifies the game as his.
Well, I know a lot of Auburn fans hope that that's the case.
Auburn fans want to win, and whatever that looks like. And I do want to reiterate some of the backlash that has gone strictly to Peyton. There is more to the story. That is another element of watching that cut up and those plays with Coach Freeze. Football is a game of dominoes. Everything affects each other. But like I said, it all runs through the quarterback. So without consistent play at that position, you are fighting an uphill battle. So I don't know that if we have an incredible game, it necessarily is the entire tale of the situation. But unfortunately, you get to a point where you have to go, have we seen enough? And I think the coaching staff hit that point. Yeah,
I think Auburn fans hit that point as well, too. Taylor, I want to thank you for joining me today to talk a little bit of Auburn football here at the Walthouse Performance Center.
Stunning.
Follow Taylor on Twitter at Talyor Davis.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes. When you have a common name like Talyor Davis, you got to use the middle name. So at Talyor Davis on both social media platforms.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express powered by the War Rapport. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Rapport on every social media platform. TW Rapport on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, worry.